pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Continue with the moment of silence. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Let's see. Is Kelly going to be able? Is she on?
No. She's not.
Okay. And you said Tony was going to be a few minutes late.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Moving on to additions to the agenda. So under consent agenda, there'll be WHS cheer fundraiser. Under old and new business, number 6, adopt BOE policy, animals and plants in school, animals in the classroom, and procedures for service animals. And then under personnel, for 1A, we'll do executive session for non-elected personnel to discuss maintenance and transportation. Is there a motion to approve the additions to the agenda?
So, I'll second it.
I'll second.
All right, we had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Everybody okay? All right, motion passed. And just before we get started into the nuts and bolts, I just wanted to remind everybody that when we're talking and somebody else has got the floor, that we're just going to go ahead and let them finish what they have to say and speak their piece, and then move on to the next person on the floor. So, is everybody okay with that? All right. So, audience with patrons and staff. The patrons?
You need to approve the
Oh,
additions,
I'm
but
sorry.
we need to move to approve the consent agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going
She
through
wasn't there yet.
the flow. So are there any reports from staff? Okay. All right, so the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion? Is there a second? Jim seconded. Is there any discussion? All right. Motion approved. Oh, I'm sorry. All opposed, say aye. Okay. Motion approved. Moving on to old and new business. Reopening plan.
Okay.
Brad?
Hey, Ray, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. We can hear you. So, just some things we'd talked about from our reopening plan. Talked about it back in May of last year and exiting COVID, which was reviewed and then have been updated on the particulars. And this is that exiting plan that we talked about. We did, the highlighted area is where we made some changes from our last board meeting based upon the new federal law that KSDE had given or told us about and came out about in regards to masks on vehicles. So any of our vehicles, the people inside would have to wear a mask. And then we will continue with the established protocols, and the responsibility of wearing masks will up to be the individuals. And then we did talk about what we can control, and that's part of the reason too with our energy performance contract with the ESP being here to talk some about that, as well as moving forward the disinfecting plan and the returning to normalcy. The county health department would continue to be utilized to help with isolation, quarantine piece, the diagnostic and screening testing, vaccines, appropriate accommodations. Then the other portion of this that we had discussed was, I'm sorry, I had them all together at one time. A consent to test. So through the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, the ability to have an opt-in to test as far as the antigen rapid testing procedure. And then that was outlined, and we have had a few that have signed up for that consent to test. And the last piece of it is, if I didn't have 45 things open, I would be able to pull that immediately for you. And this portion of it, the test to know, test to stay and learn, and test to stay, play, and participate. And these deal specifically in regards to quarantines. And so we have also, through the KE Department of Health and Environment, have obtained and received information that we obtained our grant. So we have the grant to be able to provide for our district COVID coordinator, who does have a background in the CNA work, so has some medical background to help and would be doing the testing portion of that. Also with that is the fact that we have all the supplies paid for, and it is a rapid antigen test. Then there are things that happen with the positives that we would continue, just as we talked about previously, in regards to what happens with the county health department. So are there any questions or concerns, or I know ask Ray to be available to discuss some of this with us? And if there's any questions for Ray or anything, Ray, that you'd like to say is open.
Well, I would encourage, if you got any positive tests, that you send them someplace where they can get a PCR test.
Yes.
For two reasons. And one, the PCRs are a little bit more accurate. The Binax test now that you have there is over 90%, but the PCRs are just a little bit better in that regard. And then the other thing is they can test lineage off of the PCRs, which in other words, and that's something that the state's big on right now, is what strain do you have if you do come up positive? And so they're trying to track these variants, and pretty hard right now, just so they can, and then the Delta strain brought that out on it. So it's just more information. It's no more invasive or on the person that tested positive other than the second test. There's nothing more to. It's not going to put any more burden on that person or the family.
Right, and Ray, part of the training that we haven't gotten to this point with KDHE is for that second PCR test portion with the positives. That's part of that grant as well, and for that second piece. So, and we haven't gotten all of the required training yet from the Department of Health and Environment. We've been in contact with them, but they've not officially trained us. So appreciate you saying that, because that's exactly what they told us to do. So.
I mean, in that, it's like you guys got a pretty solid plan to the year. And all we can do is see how it works. I mean, I didn't expect to be sitting where we're at with COVID at this point. I figured we'd be on the downswing, which we were. And all of a sudden it reared its ugly head again.
Yeah.
Brad, could you go through the progression of testing and what that would look like if a student were to be exposed to someone that
Yeah. Well, first of all, the portion that have to be was that they'd have to have a consent to opt in, and they can opt in the day that they find out if they choose to do that. And then the progression would be the fact that they would have the antigen test, the 15-minute test done to find out. And then as the situation with close contact and quarantines, then that information is presented. If there's vaccination, no quarantine necessary. If wearing a mask, no quarantine necessary. Quarantine at home for 10 days from last exposure, and with the no testing. But if you do the testing portion of it, then be tested 10 days in a row for a negative test.
So if you're negative, you would be tested every day,
Correct,
ongoing then for 10 days?
correct, that is correct.
Even if you're vaccinated or?
No,
So
You're
you would
vaccinated
be
now.
tested at all?
correct, no quarantine necessary.
Does that align with what the county does, Ray? That form of testing?
Ray, the question was,
Yeah. I didn't hear the question.
Sorry.
the 10 days of negative testing to remain in school and not have to quarantine does not align with what the county does, correct? You don't test every day for negative in that sense, do you?
No, basically what we do is we hold you out for 10 days. Or we put you in quarantine for 10 days. If you was wanting out of that quarantine a little bit early, it's back negative, then you could be, and you still us. Yeah, that's right. At least on the 8th.
Yeah, you broke up.
Did you, what? Yeah.
You broke up quite a bit there.
I don't know what I can do. I can try that again. We do a 10-day quarantine with no test. We just keep they stay in contact to see if you develop any symptoms. If you were wanting out of quarantine a little bit quicker, you can test on the sixth day. And if that comes back negative and you still have no symptoms, you could be released on the 8th day. Is how the county does it.
Is that based on KDHE guidance, or is that just?
Yes.
And that's what's stated in there as well. And, you know, this is KDHE grant through their department, so.
So this is also KDHE guidance?
Correct. This is KDHE, yep, grant in their guidance.
Now, the only thing that I do see here, and I missed it the first time I read through it, is you've got definition of a close contact is 6 foot for a total of 15 minutes or more. State, last time I knew, was 10 minutes or more. Is there, where did you get your 15 minutes at?
I believe from KDHE, but that could be wrong.
Yeah, that's what we might look at.
Okay? And then the other thing that we're able to do is, if somebody, the idea is, if you have concerns, you can get tested. And quote, there would be no penalty as long as it's negative. So more people then coming forward to be tested. Because if you don't do this, people are going to be to a point of, I'm not going to get tested, I'm not going to do anything because I don't want to be quarantined, I don't want to miss stuff. So this is again a positive to try to help keep kids in school, which is our main responsibility, keep people safe on both sides, and also to provide them to be able to participate in a sense of normalcy for their school year.
Says here CDC is a total of 15 minutes, but KDHE is 10.
Did you hear that right?
No.
It says on the internet that CDC is 15 minutes and KDHE is 10.
Okay, so okay, yeah, because I knew KDHE was 10 minutes. I can do some research on the difference between the two, if you want me to.
That's all right.
I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
CDC still recommends the use of masks for children in schools. Is that accurate? Right?
Ray, the question is, CDC still recommends use of masks in school,
Yes.
whether vaccinated or unvaccinated.
unfortunately both right now.
Right.
And that's the difference too that CDC is recommending, is that even though you're immune from quarantine, they suggest that that vaccinated person wear a mask for the next 10 days, just in case. But I don't know that KHE has followed up with it, other than they've acknowledged that CDC says that.
Brad, can you remind me if there's any concession for someone that can prove that they've had a positive test, and if so, for how long?
The question was if someone that has had a positive test, in other words, they've developed an antigen, and for how long. So in other words, what I would say is they go get the test, the rapid, with our district coordinator. It would show the positive antigen, correct?
Yeah.
And then they would, as far as the positivity, they haven't had it, they have no symptoms, they don't have anything. Would they then be able to continue in work since they already had the antigen, since they had a positive already?
We don't consider, basically what KDHE says is they realize that you're going to test positive. If you've already been confirmed to have COVID, they consider you immune for 6 months. From that, you will test positive for up to 90 days, and we've had a couple that's tested positive longer than that. So just because you've gotten your 10 days in and you've been released, if you was to follow up on that and to get tested, you're probably going to test positive for at least 60 days.
So then, are you quarantined or not?
And when they would do that, they wouldn't be quarantined, correct?
Correct.
Just not for 6 months? and it's
Unless
beyond
they
6
present with symptoms.
Unless you present with symptoms.
So then, after the 6 months, if you test positive because you still have the antigen,
Then after 6 months and you've tested positive, the same case,
You would be considered a reinfection, and then you would be put back in isolation.
even if you had on symptoms?
even if you didn't have symptoms.
Well, if you didn't have symptoms, yeah, that's a sticky portion right there. I think we just have to go off as case by case after that. But 6 months is what they're saying is you should be cleared from it. And most young people will be, because most, and depending on their medical status, but most young people are healthy enough that their immune systems clean that fragmented viruses out of their system relatively quick.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, KDHE would consider it a reinfection after 6 months.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time, Ray.
You bet.
Thanks for.
Appreciate all your help.
You know, you can holler at me anytime, so.
You bet we will. See ya.
All right, you guys take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
That's listed as a discussion item, I guess that's something you can
No, we've already adopted what we were gonna do back in May, so unless you wanna make a change to it.
Probably just a brief discussion, I guess. And I won't talk long on it. Personally, I think we should be following local, state, and federal guidance. It sounds like our testing isn't following that according to this plan. The mask recommendation and requirement is issued by the CDC, doesn't follow it. My biggest concern is health of students. So if there's one student that ends up on a respirator, is too many. That's my biggest concern.
Oh yeah, boy, am I thankful for this plan. Great job.
Put a lot of thought into it. Thank you.
Welcome.
It's comforting to me to know that, I mean, this plan came from KDHE, the testing plan. And so we're gonna be following, that's following state guidance. And then we're following county guidance with Ray, who's recommending mask optional at this point. Okay. So, I mean, I'm feeling confident that we're following state and local guidance. And I mean, that's not a plan that, if something were to change drastically and the recommendations of the health department, the county health department and KDHE changed, we would be flexible and could change with that. Is that correct?
Unless it's a mandate.
Unless it's a mandate and then we have to do it.
Correct.
Correct. So, but this is a document that can change if the need arises. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Is there more? Thank you. Is there more discussion on that?
And I appreciate your thoughts, and definitely we're concerned about the safety, and we're taking other precautions to ensure that safety. The only thing we can control is the air, right? Really? I mean, we can't control how kids wear masks. We can't do any of that. And the only way to control that is through the air quality. So we do have the air filters that we have in the rooms. You, as a board, have adopted the fact that we're following a disinfectant plan. We've given people personal choice in regards to wearing a mask or not. There's a lot of research showing that vaccinated people actually are spreaders, that they're having a viral intake and providing that spread to others. So I think that, you know, we're doing everything we can to ensure the safety of our kids and our staff. And then that's the other part, like too, with the energy audit with the HVAC scrubbers that will take out 99.9% of any vaccine, or excuse me, any virus. And so I appreciate your thoughts, Jim. I mean, I do. Because, you know, the other thing is we don't want to put ourselves in any assumption of risk or whatever, but anytime a kid steps out on the playground, we've assumed risk. So we need to do everything we can to ensure our kids are safe and our staff. And so I appreciate the thoughts, that's for sure.
I think, just personally, I think last year we did an excellent job. I think we were stellar. Like that is, in my mind, that was one of the biggest success stories I've seen of a group of people coming together making decisions based upon the health of the children. And we were able to keep our kids in school all year. That was a huge success.
Yeah, can't disagree with you.
The actions that we took to make that happen. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
We just finished up talking about the reopening plan.
Okay.
So, do you have any questions or comments or anything? Okay. Is there any other discussion before we move on? Okay, so the next discussion item is the bond and timelines, committee meetings. So the last time we discussed, we talked about having some community meetings, some information gathering meetings, and we were going to discuss when we were going to do that. Brad, did you have anything?
Yeah, just that I wanted to, everybody should have gotten, Jim Culligan just got us the phone survey information that you can look through, and some things with suggestions. And one of the things that he did emphasize to me too is the importance of, if the board or when the board goes to community meetings, that there are questions that you want answered. Because if you don't go with questions answered, then it can be all over the sprayed everywhere. So if you have questions that you want answered, like, would you support one location or two, or whatever that may be, that we have that so that then people are able to answer. And then, okay, you support this, how would you support it, etc. So following along that, but as Jim had said, the fact of the matter of this is this phone survey reflects our board and our community as far as a split. And so what do we need to do to ensure, again, what you all are doing as board members and as a district to make sure our district is sustainable, what that means both financially and as a district, and then to ensure that every kid has an educational opportunity, and what that may look like, best educational opportunity for the kids. So all those things together. So, and then the timelines, I don't know. I mean, I think that that's open for discussion. I mean, there was a previous motion about waiting till after the board elections. I don't know if that's something to consider or not. But the timelines and how that would work and getting people together and when and then again, what questions are we asking the board so you get clarity in the direction to go.
Does anybody have any thoughts, discussions on that? Justin, you had brought up last time having some community meetings. Did you, I can't remember, did you say when you thought maybe, or?
I don't have a problem with whenever we decide. I support going. I think for me, question number 7 is what I'm gonna, if I was like, hey, you gotta have a question answered when you get there, I'm like, well, I wanna hear from the 34% that was undecided. I mean, that's a huge number. Like the yeses and the nos were split, right? So, I mean, statistically, they were split evenly. So the huge piece is the undecided people. Why are you undecided on where you want your school to be located? Those people will convince me which way I would go if I was voting for a bone. So that would be the question I would ask. You know, I had a couple of phone calls this week that I found interesting based on this, that sometimes in small, tighter-knit communities, it's hard for an opposing opinion to gain traction in a group setting. Yes, we're all surprised at that. They had asked, are there options for, I mean, instead of doing town halls, maybe my town hall is, my personal town hall is a town hall with the group of patrons that I represent, my district, and yours is with your district, and so on and so forth. And I have the opportunity to sit in a room for, you know, maybe I schedule a day, maybe I schedule an 8-hour period, just like, you know, all these people can call me, schedule an appointment, come in and have a one-on-one conversation with me as to how they feel about the bond, how they feel about our district in general, have a general discussion that's one-on-one, them, their spouse, their cousins, whoever they feel comfortable being in a room, but not being a huge town hall meeting where groupthink takes over. And I believe that might not be a bad approach, because I want to hear from the undecideds. Those undecideds, if 34% of the undecideds say they actually do want it all in Alma, how can you argue with a 70% vote to a 30% vote? Likewise, if they all go for 2 locations, how can you go against a 70% vote to a 30% vote? And so I think the last piece I'll leave you with is his last comments on this sheet. We have learned a lot from our Muncie County experience. How many times as a board have we hired professionals from the outside that have come in to give us information about our school district, and we all tell them, you're probably asking the wrong questions, you're probably not asking that appropriately, you're probably not looking in the right areas, and they're like, oh, we do this for a living, we know what we're doing, we've got this under control. And they go out and they hit major resistance, because we are a different district, we are a unique district, And we were elected by that district, and we are the people those people want to talk to.
I voted against that baloney.
I hear you. I think some of the data we got out of there is not bad. Did we get our money's worth? That's the debate, and I'm not here or now. It's already said and done. But that's my point is, I don't believe that anybody else can go talk to our patrons the way they want to be talked to, the way they want to be communicated with, better than we can. And I don't believe that they will answer the questions that I believe truly and dearly need to be answered in a group setting. So, there's my feedback.
Any thoughts on that?
I think people are more open when you have smaller groups. I completely agree. I think town halls, unfortunately, not everybody's just willing to stand up in front of a group of people and ask a question. So I think small meetings are really beneficial for that use and that purpose. I guess if I would be potentially doing a town hall, I think that would be potentially a good option. Having board members sit in different locations, speak with smaller groups of people, having those discussions. I think doing it in a public setting brings more people potentially. When I went and walked the streets of our towns, I went and done that and did that. I put up signs in public places and asked for people to contact me about it, but that didn't exactly work. Nobody really. I did have a few people who saw the signs who did call, but by and large, going out definitely got more contact than when I was standing at the doorstep. I don't know how many people will show up at town halls, but I think you probably have a greater likelihood of more individuals showing up than providing your number and email address and saying, hey, contact me if you want to provide your opinion. But I do like the small group setting aspect. I think that's one of the points.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the questions and how they might get posed to the community. And one thing that I was thinking about is I think it would be good to either have two opposing board members ask the same questions, because people tend to ask questions and get the answers that they want. I think it would be good to get honest feedback if you really have two opposing views, questions answered at the same time, so that you're not pointed towards the direction that you're pointed. You know, if someone's strongly in favor of all in Alma or strongly in favor of the two-town option, not having just questions pointed towards one direction. I think would be, come up with that list of questions ahead of time, or have both board members sitting together, maybe talking to, one or two other people would be a good idea. That way you get honest feedback, and maybe you don't hear it the same way.
I think maybe setting like that would be beneficial to try to be as informative as possible. So, discussing specifics in terms of when we say our operating budget, we're having difficulty with every year, and we talk to specifics about the fact that our HVACs are out of warranty. What's that cost for each one of those HVACs? How much does that mean for the school? Our roofs are out of warranty. And maybe what are those specific costs involved, so that community members can more directly see and maybe correlate for themselves in their hope of understanding what position we're in. Talking about our elementary schools and how the way we're operating, how much more costs are we bringing on having two elementary schools versus another 2-week school in Kansas that has one. And getting down to the level of specific things would be beneficial from an understanding standpoint, so that we're starting from a base level.
said we were gonna have some town halls. I think obviously there's some different ideas on how those should look. I mean, I feel like having the details is a good idea. I think if you're one-on-one, that probably is a good opportunity. It seemed like the last town halls we had, we put out a lot of information, and it kind of gets lost in translation, I think, a little bit when we're in big groups and people have things they want to say. And I think the original idea was to have town halls to get information from the patrons. So I like the idea of a smaller setting, but you're right. I mean, if you go to the board member that you know favors what you favor, then you're going to get the answers that you want to get. So having opposing viewpoints is oftentimes a good idea too. So I don't know what the best way to do that is. Do you guys have any thoughts on preferences on what you guys feel would be best?
The only time we ever broke into smaller groups, we already had a plan. That's the only time we've ever, that was one meeting where we broke off into small, we already had a plan. So maybe that's the model without a plan. Because each one of them rooms was different. I mean, it was, no matter what the plan was, each set of patrons in them rooms seemed to be just a little different. I don't know.
And I think we didn't ask questions either. You know, we already had what we were planning on doing, so we didn't really have to ask. But I think asking the questions after it's over, I think is really important. Asking them, what do you think about this? What's your opinion? What are things we need to be considering?
So you're in favor then of smaller breakout type things? Is that what I'm getting? Okay. There was a lot of good discussion that happened in some of those rooms.
Something along those lines. I mean,
Right.
who knows who shows up? I mean, they all have an opportunity to show up at their doorstep right now. I mean, in that regard. And email and call, they all have that opportunity. Just schedule a time to talk. So, and it's never going to be right for everybody. The 8 hours, you know, you'll never, that'll be what you'll hear. Well, that wasn't the day that worked for me. Okay. But if we do schedule something like that, and if we do it, probably how to do it at all 3 communities. We have facilities to do it in, and we can break out into whatever it takes for rooms. Well, it would actually be 3 because a couple of board members and 3 in the other one. So.
Do we want to look at setting dates now, or do we want to wait the next meeting?
I also think if we have one and go from there.
I want to go from there.
And that's actually, and then we can tweak it. Because if we just set solid dates for all 3 locations, boom, 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 I mean, we're going to learn as we go. But it would help. I haven't seen it. Doesn't feel like it, but we are.
And I mean, I would like to note that I think that the committee did a really good job. They dedicated a lot of time, a lot of energy to that process, and I don't think that this in any way discounts what they did. Obviously, the results are split, we are split, and I still stand by the fact that I have a hard time putting forth a bond when there's such massive split between what everybody thinks is best. But I do think we need to listen to those community groups because 2 of them have brought forth that information. So I think a town hall or more than one, and learning as we go, information seeking is a good way to get more feedback specifically from the patrons, more patrons, to compare with what the committee has given us and compare with what the research has given us, and then compile that all together, and that brings about a pretty comprehensive list of things to discuss and then be able to put forth a bond to. Because if we go and we, you know, we find that everybody is in favor of one or the other, then at least we know which direction to go. So, I don't know. I just want to say thank you to the committee because they did invest a lot of time and energy, and I don't want them to feel like we are discounting it. It's just being used at this point as part of the research that we've got now.
I believe it's a piece to the pie.
Yeah,
So,
but I think it's a valuable piece, a very valuable piece, because we now have two committees that say that.
would there be any traction to having a school board meeting that is run like parent-teacher conferences? Where we divide up into rooms, we schedule a night, we schedule 2 hours, 15-minute intervals, and all 7 of us are in our own room, and people that come can bounce from room to room to room and have their individual discussions with each individual board member. I mean, is there board policy against that? Is that an open meeting issue? I mean, is there any support here at the board? Is it a dumb idea?
I mean, other than the fact that we were all in the same room,
Right.
so,
You'd declare a meeting and then split off and do your, much like we did for the other one.
So you're not taking any action when you're in your own room.
Right,
So
right.
there's nothing, I
Right.
don't think open meeting wouldn't, the meeting's still open, you just, there's no action being taken by anybody.
I'm not saying it's a great idea, I'm just throwing it out and trying to figure out options. If that's something that you all would go for, like,
well, that's helpful when, I mean, we have, everybody here knows when that board meeting night is, so that's already on your calendar too, so.
Well, it's gonna be a board meeting anyway, because we'll all be there.
Yes.
No matter what, no matter who breaks off, it'll still have to, because it'll start out with all of us being there,
Unless we get small.
unless everybody doesn't show up. But, I mean, if we don't have a quorum, I guess that's true too.
Any other thoughts?
One more thought, just on scheduling, and it goes in line with the thought process of having one and then waiting and having another schedule and having another. And, I think when we are scheduling, just trying to make sure that we're giving sufficient time, so that as much as possible, we can get the word out, to try to get as many people as possible to attend. You know, that was kind of the issue that we had with the last one, where we didn't have great attendance at some of them. I'd like to see a lot more, so.
And I don't think time was our issue with the last one. It's just personal. We had good attendance that.
we did have.
And that was what, a month out,
Yeah.
if I remember right? That was probably our best attended one that we had, in my opinion.
So do we wanna schedule one now? Do we
I'm
wanna-
for it.
Okay.
You want to, again, have a list of questions? I mean, we can schedule, but what's going to format, what's the
Right. So,
questions, what's going to be your responsibility?
yeah, that's a good point, Brad. And I mean, I guess I haven't been able to read this yet, so I would like time to read this. So what if we took the information we have and all the information that we've been given, take the time, and then when we come back next time, we can have questions that we want to ask and discuss that as a board and come to a consensus on the questions that we want to present, because I think those should be standard.
Yeah, the information that we provide probably should be standard.
Right. What do you think?
There's never been a bond election put out where you have two choices. The board can't decide which one they want. You
Yeah.
put them out there and give them a choice.
They've done that.
The voters decide. The board doesn't decide. We can have meeting after meeting after meeting for month after month. The board doesn't decide. The voters decide what goes on.
They've had, I've seen those or have heard about those. And I don't know exactly what to say. I mean, they've done them, yes. But then if you have two options, I've heard negativity in regards to how it works, that you never can get them Because you're gonna have 50% already that are gonna go for this, and then 50% to this, and then you aren't getting actually a true 50% or 51% to pass it, because you already got it split from the beginning. I don't know. I don't know statistically how that plays out, but that's some of the thought process as I understood it.
Does that bring like 2 questions to the ballot then? Is
Yeah.
that what that looks like?
Yeah. Option A or option B.
I think he's got some traction there because right now we're 30, 30, and 30. So, maybe we'll have 3 options. I mean, I think the board's split between the 2 decisions. We just gotta figure out what these undecideds are, and Colin's gonna point that if it was on the ballot, 30% are gonna say yes and 30% are gonna say no. It's what the other 40% decides to do. And we're here to provide the information to both options. It would make more sense of having grouped town hall meetings. Here's your 2 options that we can't decide between. type
And the board
scenario.
members will feel better because, well, this is the one I think's best. No, this is the one I think's best.
Yeah.
Not that it would happen, but what if both options pass?
I don't think we can do that. It'd have to be 50/50.
Well,
Well, if
it
it's
just takes 51%.
Yeah.
But if you can't
But if
get
you said,
51,
if you, there,
It's 50.
it's a question though, right? It's a question of yes or no. So theoretically, someone could vote yes.
This or
for both
this.
options.
Yeah,
Right.
you wouldn't have it, you wouldn't be able to state it that way. There would have, I mean, you would have to have somebody write the bond that would say option A or option B.
Brad Gray is a former superintendent at Mulvane and Holton, and works for Energy Solutions Professionals now, but he's had a lot of experience in bond. And I see you,
dancing around.
yeah,
My only question would be that you're not giving the taxpayers an option to vote no. There's gonna be either a school here or a school there, but there's nothing that says I don't want a school.
But most of them don't want to give that
I
option,
know, that's just,
especially the committee.
yeah. That'd be my only thought on that. And a lot of them, you see them where they have an option of a school, then athletic facilities or something like that. That's usually when you see 2 options.
That's a good point. I can see people just purposely not voting because they don't feel like we're just forcing him to,
right.
forcing him.
Because there's the third one. The
So
third
now
one
we have
would
3
be
options.
whether you have no.
Fifth option would be
Can we have what? Because we've got 20 some,
put all on.
You have plenty to choose from.
right?
Okay, I feel like I'm hearing we're probably not ready to set a date. We need to figure out what questions. We need to figure out if we're gonna ask questions, or if we're just putting up 4 options on a ballot. And so
I would, if Brad doesn't mind following up with that and seeing how many other, maybe on your superintendent forum,
Yep, I can
other
find out.
school districts have done that, just got my curiosity too,
Yep.
How bad did it, how bad did it get?
all right. Any other discussion on that? Okay. So moving on to informational here, enrollment numbers.
It's changed since the last time, and I don't have exact numbers, but on Friday when we put this out, we had 309 out of 426 students that have been online enrolled. So, and they've been, they being the secretaries of the buildings have been contacting people that haven't enrolled. So, just FYI.
Any discussion on that? Okay. We're down to number 4, budget.
Yep, in September, we'll have our budget hearing with also the revenue neutral hearing as well. And just information-wise, it's always good to have, and for you all to be able to put out there, we're down 6.641 mils. And the last 2 years, which last year included our bond payment, it's $385,055 decrease in local taxes in the last 2 years. Part of it is due to the no bond payment this year, but the other thing to remind employees is during the same period of time, local taxes dropped significantly. At the same time, you still received a 6% increase in salary the last 2 years. So I think that that's something that speaks highly to everybody working together and working through things. But now the hard part, as we discussed before, once you drop those mills off, how to get them back on as far as that situation. But that ship has sailed, so we're on upward and onward. But it is a good thing to be able to report to your patrons and to those that ask that there is a huge decrease in your local taxes that you pay.
Any questions, comments? Okay, thanks, Bill.
Sure.
Moving on to number 5, which is an action item, it's the energy performance contract.
And one thing I forgot to mention, I really want to thank Cheryl and Janice and now Michelle working in the district office. They've done a great job to help us with our budget. And so kudos to them that are in the trenches actually getting the work done. So a huge shout out to them. So I failed to mention that, but I needed to. Energy performance contract, yeah, good job. Energy performance contract. There's new information on your packets there. It's got the highlightings on it to talk about. Brad Ray is here, and Mike Mahoney with ESP, that is the engineer and responsible for it. They've done a lot of work and helped us do a lot of things. And just FYI, we started this process about 3 years ago to get to this point, so we've got a lot to do that. And the situation, either way with the bond, as we've talked about before, we got issues that we got to take care of. How are we going to get taken care of? We need to take care of maintenance issues that have big dollar amounts that we can't afford within our budget. This allows that to happen. The other thing that it allows to happen is for our communities to see that we are maintaining our buildings, because that's something that you also hear with bond issues. You don't maintain what you have, don't take care of what you have. Those things we will be moving, if the board chooses to enter into this, that we will then be maintaining and helping our buildings and solving a problem. And the good thing about this is that it doesn't touch at this point any building that may be affected by the bond. And the fact that it's a 10-year lease, so we're not having a 25-year interest, nor are we having to worry about with the quickness of it. In other words, why pay for lighting that pays for itself in 4 years and have it on a 15 to 20, and then you're completely back in the cycle before the other ones, they're worn out with your lease still going on and having 2 leases. It is for 2.3% interest. The ESSER funds, it's been a small change in that. That ESSER fund amount is, I don't know the exact, I can look it up right now, but $184,000, I believe, somewhere around there, for the ESSER piece that would be able to be included in it. And with that formula, since this happened and the bond situation changed, Brad and I met and discussed, and with Mike's help too, about do we want to add stuff in, because we didn't get this done within the bond. Can we add this in now and do more, as long as we can pay for itself? So the exciting thing about it is with our savings, it pays for itself. So it's a 10-year lease purchase agreement that we would be looking to enter into. And the first portion of that, asking permission to approve the moving forward with the phase 1, which is the lighting piece. And then not phase 2, but then releasing the ESSER RFPs for the HVAC work. That HVAC work includes those ionization, those plasma scrubber units for air quality. And so that sets the stage a little bit. They're here to provide insight, to help in any way, to any answers, those kind of things. So I would lend the floor to you all.
And one of the things I'd like to also bring out or share is that you're talking about the bond issue, and that was one of the things in our discussion was what can we do from cost savings plus ESSER so that you get things done with buildings that are gonna be here. You're basically putting a 9.2 mil project out at no tax raise. Now, to me, that's important. If I'm thinking about what I want to do and what I want my constituents to know, that for the 450,
455, yeah.
you know, that your assessed valuation went up to $49,185. I mean, your district's growing, your assessed valuation is growing. This project that we presented to you is going to be paid from savings. You got your ESSER funds you're going to put into it, then the paid for savings pays for it. You're not having to put anything else into it. You're not having to ask for more mills. You're not having to go to your budget and try to find money. You know, it's 9.2 mills of, here you go. So that to me, as a former superintendent, mills were important to me. And that's one of the things that we liked. And the reason we didn't use all your ESSER money, the reason that we wanted to do it out of paid for savings as phase one is the fact that you don't know what you're going to do, you know, what the bond is, but you've still got needs that are going to have to be addressed. You've got roofs, you've got the stone building, you've got some other things that are going to have to be addressed no matter what eventually. So that's why we didn't just say, let's just pay for it all, you know, and then hopefully something happens. You know, we're looking farther on down the road to what we need to do. So that was the project and how we came about the scope.
And one thing, just to, because I know the answer to the question, so I'll ask it. We can add in more things as we go, correct?
Yes, that's why we call it a phase one. So, you know, if we come back in December and say, no, we've got to do something. If whatever you decide on the bond, if something doesn't work out, you've got to do something. That's where we reconvene and we look and see what we can do some more.
And one thing too that is important in the factors is that the FCIP program, Kansas State, they will be overseen to ensure that the savings that they guarantee us is our savings. So if it's not, then they have to be responsible to make up the difference. So that's a great thing to have in your pocket, because people go, well, yeah, they say that, but are they really going to get that much savings? Well, we know we're guaranteed it.
And what's good about the lights is, let's say you do the lights, we do them next month. You started that savings then. You know, it's not, you have to wait till the next year. It's as soon as you change the light bulb, change the fixture, put in the LED lights, you're getting the savings.
And with that said too, Brad, because I heard you say starting next month, so the question, how can that happen? We're in school, that you guys have the opportunity that people to
Well, what we do is, like, we're doing LED lights, we work at night. You know, when the kids aren't there, we visit with the principals, and we're gonna do this floor tonight, it's done at night, it's cleaned up, it's ready for class the next day. So we get it done. And it's when it's safety, there's no kids there.
How is the tracking done on the savings piece? Is that something that we would have to track our costs over the next 10 years and then compare that year over year to what's being saved, or is that?
Yeah, great question. Actually, that's kind of beginning with the end of mine, right? How are we going to get these savings? Who's going to prove it?
leader in me, way to go. Good job.
What's that?
I said leader in me. That's what we teach in our district. Start with the end in mind. So perfect.
So we have, as part of the contract, is what's called measurement verification. So you measure and get data, and then you verify it based on formulas or calculations that you actually got the savings. And so that program or that plan of measurement verification is part of the contract. So it's both parties are saying, this is what we're going to measure to make sure that we get the savings that we said that we're going to get. So, great question. I don't know if that answered you.
So it's an ongoing measurement process, and then
Yeah,
it's not just
and it can go for as long as you want, but it's also what usually happens is after the first year things don't change, and so usually if you make your savings the first year, no sense in paying to have somebody tell you again the next year, oh, by the way, you made it again the second year, third year. Maybe you might do it 1, 2, maybe you think about the third year, and so on. Does that make sense? I I can talk about the individual project. There's quite a bit on the sheet. I think I'm looking at the same sheet you are, right? And if you look over in the left-hand column, I just want to point out that there's a lot of things that we could do, right, that we found, but the X's, so we said, okay, well, you know, the bond, what will be done through its in question, so let's kind of back off of those that would be impacted by that, and let's look at the places that are just going to continue to be there and need to be done. So, you know, kind of focused on elementary, the commons, I call it the commons, I think they call it the annex also, next to the elementary school, the junior high, and then the high school. And then we kind of moved away from, I call this the stone building, it probably has a real name, but I call it, it's a beautiful stone building, I call it the stone building. So we've kind of backed off of it a little bit, right? Because depending on what's decided, you may decide to do this, or you may decide to do something else in that building. So we've said, okay, well, let's take the X off of that one. So I just want to make sure that we're all reading this the same, and that is if there's an X in that far left column, then we're planning on doing that at least as part of this first phase. And then you can see some of the other things. I know the roofing is something that's important to you. We're not, because there's some question about what schools here and there, we've kind of left that out maybe to be part of the bond. So anyway, that's how the sheet works.
See, you have the middle school on there for something, what is that?
That is, well, it uses the term retro commissioning, but it's actually decommissioning. It's actually putting it in I'll use the term mothball form, which means it's still a building and it's still going to be an active facility. So you can't just turn it off and walk away, because then you have to make sure that things in the building are maintained, not to the level where they have occupants, but you know, you just got to kind of watch the humidity and things like that. I don't know what the long-term solution is for that building, but you'll want the building to remain in pretty good shape if, for instance, you give it to the city or sell it or whatever you decide to do with it. So this, we haven't taken all of the utility savings, because you'll still have some very small utility bills there, but it will be just to maintain the building in kind of a mothballed stage. That answer your question? Okay.
So if we sold it, it would save us that much money.
What's that?
If we sold it, it would save us that much money for me even have to do that.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Be on somebody else's books.
And one of the things with just like with the high school, the old limestone building, the difference is, okay, if we do the, say, VRF system, whereby, okay, we're gonna have to do some stuff with the lights, because why aren't we doing the lights? Well, because if we happen to go to the bond with the VRF system, we're gonna be dropping that ceiling, and not to get into your business, because you wait more than me, but drop that ceiling to run the duct work, and then we would retrofit the lights, those panels. And so, that type of thing. So that's why that's quite not included in some of this, because we don't know right now.
I feel like there's a lot of flux. We have I mean, if we had a bond that we could do in conjunction, I think that would make sense, because we would be in agreement on what we're going to be moving forward with, what building we were going to use in long term versus those that we're doing. So with things in flux, and with us seeking input from the community, I don't know if going forward with any specific enhancements would be beneficial, because I think a lot's going to come from our patrons on what, hopefully, they provide us some feedback to give us an idea of what direction they want us to go. So it makes it difficult, I guess, when you're in flux, to decide on enhancements to some facilities versus not others, and then in terms of the communities, I think they deserve the input first. Seek the input from. appreciate all the work you did. I mean, you guys obviously have done a lot of analysis, and have been taking a lot of time to assess these enhancements. I think it's something we can present to our communities as well, as an enhancement. Anything that we can consider.
There's nothing here that you put on here that wouldn't enhance our bond anyways, right? And there's nothing to any of the facilities that would not meet our bond criteria, correct? I mean, let me rephrase that. Is there things you're improving on here that we would improve through a bond?
You could, but the question becomes, would you rather do it in 10 years or 25 years? And, you know, how important is that? You know, that's the benefit of 10-year with
So is there a way, since you're doing a phased option, is there a way to do a phase 1 be a 5-year, and then phase 2 be a 10-year, and phase 3, whatever that may be a 15-year? So I'm not paying for my lights over 10 years, but my HVAC I am paying over 10 years to get my lights done in 5, maybe save us a little money. Is there any options like that on a phased approach?
So, yes, but then what happens is now the HVAC gets pushed out even further than 10 years, because it's the idea of cooperation between the different types of projects. So a lighting project pays for itself in, let's say, in less than 5 years, right? And you combine that with HVAC, and then together they're both less than 10 if you
So what you're
separate
saying
it.
is the HVAC might take 15 years to
Yeah.
pay for itself, and I'm using the averages from the lights in order to bring that all together.
Absolutely. So it's sort of riding on the coattails a little bit of the lighting, if you think about it that way.
I call it bundling. You know, you're gonna bundle this to get this.
Because some things just are inherent. They do have savings, they're incremental savings. Like a rooftop unit just wears out. And it just, you know, you could continue to work on it, but it's, there's a quote, throw good money after bad, I think.
Well,
I'm not sure, but anyway, eventually it's just better to replace it. And the ones that we have on the list are the ones that need to be replaced.
Yeah.
And so you're sort of at that place. The other thing I think it can help you with is showing good stewardship to the patrons also, meaning that bonds sometimes, maybe people get in their heads like bricks and mortar, you know, like spaces and classrooms and where the kids are actually taught. And sometimes kind of behind the scenes stuff they sort of just expect the district to take care of. Well, this is sort of a way to take care of things sort of behind the scenes. Maybe some patrons wouldn't even know what some of these things are, so they just expect that the district takes care of it. So this would be a way to be kind of a good steward and get those things taken care of. And to be able to say that, and then maybe ask your patrons, can we do a bond, you know, just an idea.
Very much so, because it will help our budget. Another thing to help our budget, and that's one of our goals of why we entered into initially even talking about a bond. So the operating expense, one, the efficiency, and two, hopefully, well, not hopefully, we will not have near as many breakdowns and things of the equipment that needs replaced now, so.
Well, and you're improving the learning environment for your kids.
That's a great point.
You know, raises it.
We do, I mean, regardless of the bond, I mean, we still have the needs now for the HVACs
Right.
and all of those things. That's not going away, so.
Isn't it?
Right.
So this is an action item tonight, correct?
Yes.
And Brad, you support it?
I do. Do what?
Who might argue
Before you do,
Get that, film that, make sure that gets.
the 50,000,
Mhm.
that's what the cost is. Is that correct, or what is the actual cost a year? Because that says, what the statement is, the energy savings of 554 annually would pay for the program. So is that paying for the program? Is that breaking even? Is that, where are we at there?
You guys want to just go through the,
I mean, you don't have to go through line, that's just a simple question, does it?
Yeah.
I know it's not probably simple, but it says right here.
Break it down for me, I'm a
Facebook.
simple man.
Yeah.
I have this part of the sheet. Do you have a sheet that looks like this?
They do.
Okay, on the
back.
backside. Okay, I didn't know.
So this is-
got me in school too.
Cash flow. And what it tries to do is, the first year, you can see all the years, and then this is how the money lays out. And so if you look over in the far column is, the savings as it gets larger and larger. So basically each year, then after it gets paid off, then you're positive with all the savings that generated the payback of the project to begin with. I don't know, I may not answer your question. What's that?
Yeah. So,
The one time.
Yep. Right. Alright, I got one here. Candy's a little thin, but
Probably melting.
Is the district-wide ionization filtration, is that at all locations?
Yeah, that's it. New, any that we're not replacing that's fairly newer, we'll be adding it to it. So all the HVAC will be getting it. So the ionization is a means, COVID's on everybody's mind, so it does do that one. But it also does flu, it does all of them. So even after we beat this COVID thing, there'll be other ones and it will fix those too.
Mike, those are roughly like $440 a piece, right, to put those on?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the unit and what size the ionization device needs to be. So
And that's what we put into for some of our grant stuff to help pay for that. So in combination with grant with this, to, just like you said, Jim, to make sure every classroom is taken care of.
Is it possible to get an air picture put in here?
I was thinking.
I would take a cool box tonight, right? It's a good portion. I got that for people.
Madam President, I so move to accept the bid from Energy Performance Contract ESP has provided to us.
Moved, is there a second?
I'll say.
All seconds, is there any discussion?
Maybe just a couple clarifying points. So all items we're talking about are items that are check mark boxes next to them. So we would be retrofitting lighting for, I guess my concern would be, we're doing retrofits on potential buildings that citizens may come back and say, I mean, I understand.
So take this approach, it's a 5-year payout on the lights, and it's gonna take you 5 years to get a new one built. Even if you pass a bond, which you're not going to because we haven't voted on one for November. So if you go next November, you're already a year into that. But it takes you 2 or 3 years, it's already paid for itself to retrofit the lights already, so we may as well.
Okay, that
do
makes
this matter.
Any more discussion? Alright, it's been moved and seconded. All of those opposed, say aye. All in favor, same sign? I guess I didn't have to do that, do I?
Because
Say
nobody,
opposed.
you just do
Okay.
one of the other.
Alright, motion passed.
You're kind of sneaky.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Did you pass or did you go?
Are you starting tomorrow?
Tonight.
I pulled the car up over the door and maybe get some air.
Can we start with a fan right there?
Yeah, it's on Brad.
Yeah, it's on Brad, yeah. Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, it's because of electricity. Get a retro credit to work on the fans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But they were back there.
We just shut that ear off so that we can have no record.
Yeah. Okay, so then, tell me if I get this wrong. So
Nope.
we're moving into an executive section.
Nope.
No, we still have one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're out.
Checked it off too soon. Okay, so next one, number 6, adopt BOE policy, ING, animals and plants in school. Brad?
It's Kansas Association of School Boards policy that we would be passing, and deals with the animals in the classroom and procedures for service animals. We'd had a request to possibly bring a service dog to school. We don't have a policy, we need to have one and have a procedure in place. So it's for everyone's safety, both for the student that may request it and also for the students that are in the classroom and staff. So just going through that, and it's included. Jan's done a great job of handling this and working through this with Kansas Association of School Boards for legalities, so I would recommend we move forward.
I move to adopt policy ING animals put in school.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those opposed, say aye. Alright, motion passed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. The personnel.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving down to personnel. Sure this right. So I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual's employee's performance pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under coma, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at how much?
Well, first do negotiations. It's on your
You did the.
What did I
agenda.
do?
You did non-elected personnel, but we have to do that next.
So the negotiations one, read that.
Ah, yeah.
Okay.
So
I messed you up. So read-
that's okay.
That's per person.
So read this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna
That's
get
on
this.
negotiations. No,
It's okay.
executive session.
So executive section,
You don't have to read, I don't think the percentages or any of
No,
that.
no,
Just
no.
negotiations,
Negotiations.
basically.
and then,
Personnel, yeah.
come over here.
And all that.
okay, so I move we go into executive session to discuss the latest personnel proposal, for increasing the base pay rate of the teachers pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under coma, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at, how much time we need?
It's 7 minutes, so 25 after.
At
That's
7:45.
25.
Are we moving or are they moving?
We'll move.
I mean, we're
but
happy to go.
I need a second.
I say.
Can we go?
Thank you.
Second? Oh, yeah, second.
And then
Do I need to
vote.
vote? You need to vote.
All opposed, say aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
All right, we're back in open session.
So I move to accept personnel as listed.
A second?
We have a second. Is there any discussion?
As one of you needs to read it off, I think.
Okay. Not the whole thing.
This, you can start
Just
with the
for-
substitute.
You want me to,
Yeah,
since I
sure.
did it? So, as listed would be approving substitute teachers of Peggy Adams, Orville Altivo, Brian Boucher, Laura Hannon, Tony Shaw, Brady, Stanley, David Markley, Susan Harris, and Matt Olthoff. Also, emergency subs of Jennifer Anderson, Braden Suddenberg, and Sue Yocum, as well as substitute classified staff of Debbie Stewart and Norma Burris. And then, except, we're supposed to go through employment? Okay. Of employment of supplemental contract list as provided, including assistant coaches and club sponsors by our administration. Tyler Douglas, assistant 7 through 12 wrestling coach. Brandy Stanley, AES secretary. Sharman Miller, COVID coordinator for the district office, administrative assistant. Okay, so COVID coordinator / district office / administrative assistant. Jennifer Eastman as a junior high secretary. And then resignations / retirement of Samantha Walsh as the AES secretary and Freddie Johnson as transportation / maintenance director. Unless there was something added before I got there. Is there any
No,
additions to
that
this? Okay.
was it.
Alright, it's been moved and seconded. Is there all opposed, say aye. Motion passed. Alright, so it looks like we're moving on to superintendent board member report. Correct?
I don't have anything else.
Justin?
I'm good, thank you.
Jim? Don?
Tough, I haven't been here for a while, so I got to No, I did, I apologize for not being here, but sometimes it's just hard to get here. I thought I was going to be early tonight and be here before everybody else, and I was stalling. So, apologize for that. I don't know
Jerome?
So job well done because the modular is gone. The modular is gone. Job well done, Brad.
It is.
Now, and I know Donnie helped with that because I've seen him over there and he probably mad at me because I didn't offer him help, but yeah. You didn't come help with part of that? I thought I seen you one day over there doing something with you didn't have to get him. But I noticed they had to do a little bit extra to get the fence out and,
Yeah, we did.
but, yeah. You did it?
Were you over there?
With the tractor?
No,
Oh.
I just pulled them out.
That's all I got.
Needed to say that.
Yeah, transparency, right? There's the transparency.
Goodness. I don't have anything tonight, so that's it. I just need a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Oh, I do.
Oh.
I'm sorry. It was just good luck at the start of the school year, so I'm sure it's a lot of work, a lot of change happening, so thank you for that, and good luck to you guys. That's it. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you all.
Brad, I did